Welcome to Kyoto, Japan. Join us as we savor the flavors of Kyoto's culinary delights while visiting some of the most iconic tourist spots in Japan. If you're just joining us, our self-guided Japanese adventure started off in Tokyo. Then we moved to Kanazawa. Now, we're going to Kyoto, where we'll spend the next 3 days. Getting from Kanazawa to Kyoto takes about 2 hours, including a transfer from the Hokuriku Shinkansen to the Thunderbird. The ride itself is very scenic, going past rice fields and going through mountains. If you're going to Kyoto by train, you will arrive at Kyoto Station. I was surprised to find that Kyoto Station is one of the largest and busiest stations in Japan. Its distinctive architecture was designed by architect Hiroshi Hara. The station features an observation deck known as the Sky Garden, offering panoramic views of the city. The station was completed in 1997 as a major urban redevelopment project. Inside the station has a futuristic design with a large atrium called the Skyway. One reason it's so busy is because it serves both the JR Shinkansen and local rail lines. Let's talk a little about the layout of the city. It's generally broken down into 5 quadrants: north, south, east, west, and central. There are hundreds of temples, shrines, and other attractions spread across 320 square miles. So why is this important to understand? Well, to get from one attraction to another takes time, and without having a plan, you could waste valuable time just getting from one place to another. My suggestion would be to put a pin on a map of all the places you would like to visit, and then try to do everything you can in one general area before moving to another. We arrived in Kyoto around noon and immediately started our walk to the Airbnb that we were going to stay at. Up until this point, we've been staying in hotels, so I was very excited to see what a Japanese house looked like. We had actually arrived in Kyoto earlier than expected, so we decided to spend the afternoon exploring the area around our Airbnb. And we stumbled upon Chishakuin Temple. The temple was established in 1598 to teach monks authentic Shingon esoteric Buddhism. We didn't know it at the time, but the temple grounds are home to one of the finest gardens in the Kyoto Higashiyama ward, and we completely missed it. But we did get to see the temple and light some incense to purify the atmosphere and our minds. On our way to the temple, we saw a large building, but we were not sure what was in it, so we thought we'd go back and investigate. It turned out to be Sanjusangendo, which is another Buddhist temple, but this one houses 1001 statues of Kannon, the goddess of compassion, and 28 sculptures of Buddhist guardian deities. You're not allowed to take photos or videos inside, so the best I can do is show you the website. But you are able to take photos and videos outside, and the garden was beautiful. As far as the building that houses all of these sculptures, it was constructed in 1266, and as you can see, the building is huge compared to the surrounding area. By now we were starting to get hangry, so we decided to take the local train to central Kyoto for dinner. And this is when we found out that our welcome suica that we purchased in Tokyo also worked on the trains in Kyoto. After a quick walk down the restaurant-lined Pontocho Alley, we arrived at our destination, Yasubi Okonomiyaki. So what is okonomiyaki? Well, it's basically a savory Japanese pancake. It's made with a batter that is mixed with cabbage and sometimes a protein. After it's cooked, it's topped with a special okonomiyaki sauce, mayonnaise, and dried bonito flakes. And it pairs great with a Japanese beer. When we go to a new city anywhere in the world, we always like to go to a brewery. So after dinner, we found Kyoto Beer Lab, a quaint little brewery by a river tucked in a little neighborhood close to our Airbnb. It was the perfect way to end the day. Our second day in Kyoto started off with a rainy early morning at the iconic Fushimi Inari Shinto Shrine. The shrine is located in the southern region of Kyoto, so we decided to take an Uber from our Airbnb to the attraction because we knew we would have a long day of walking ahead of us. The entire ride took about 25 minutes. To enter the shrine, you first walk through a huge Roman gate. Then you're greeted by a main hall where visitors are encouraged to pay respect to the rice god deity by making a small offering. The entrance to the torii gates is at the back of the main grounds. You can't miss it because you'll see thousands of torii gates. The gates cover a hiking trail that takes you to the summit of Mount Inari. The entire hike takes about 2 to 3 hours with an overall incline of 764 feet. And in true Japanese fashion, there are vending machines located along the hike so you don't have to worry about bringing your water bottle. Hikers are welcome to go as far as they like, then turn around and go back. It wasn't busy when we were at the shrine, but it's probably due to the rain. However, we've heard that it gets really crowded, and so the further you go up, the less crowded it becomes, and you can take some really good photos. Foxes are thought to be Inari's messengers, so you'll see lots of fox statues all over the grounds. At night and on quiet days, some of the shrine's resident cats come out. We were lucky enough to see a few of the Inari cats just hanging around. We spent about 2 hours walking through the torii gates and walking around the grounds before heading to our next destination, a traditional Japanese tea ceremony in the geisha district. We made reservations for the tea ceremony months in advance, so we made sure to allow ourselves enough time to get from the Inari shrine to Gion via public transportation. As part of the ceremony experience, staff dressed us in traditional kimonos and did the ladies' hair. We were also provided a small handbag to carry our personal belongings. Then, an English-speaking host walked us through the steps of a traditional tea ceremony. We were then provided our own matcha and tools to complete the ceremony ourselves. It was a fantastic cultural experience, and I definitely recommend it for anyone who's visiting Kyoto. I'll provide a link to it in the description below. After the ceremony, you're welcome to wear your kimono for the rest of the day. It just has to be returned before closing. By now, it was lunchtime, so we decided to turn in our kimonos and go to Kyoto Station for a leisurely lunch before heading to our afternoon adventure. We ended up at the top of a hotel at Gozanbo Teppanyaki. This ended up being our splurge meal of the trip, offering a multi-course lunch cooked right in front of you. In the US, we call this cooking style hibachi. So what's the difference? Well, in Japan, hibachi is when you grill over an open flame, while teppanyaki is cooked on a griddle. Who knew? Overall, the meal was delicious and a much different experience than US hibachi. After our meal was finished, we moved to a dessert room where we enjoyed matcha ice cream while overlooking the city. To get to our next attraction of the day, the Arashiyama Bamboo Forest. It would take about 30 minutes by train, which was much needed rest time after that big lunch. The train does not drop you off right at the forest, so you can expect a 15-minute walk from the train station. Bamboo has a deep cultural significance in Japan, symbolizing strength, flexibility, and prosperity. The bamboo forest spans about 6.2 square miles, providing visitors with a serene walking path that winds through towering bamboo. The tall and thick mozo bamboo can grow up to almost 65 feet. The bamboo forest was a fun experience, but the Okochi Sanso garden that is adjacent to the forest was by far my favorite. The winding rocky path going through the garden led to multiple outlook points, providing stunning views of the surrounding mountains. The garden is about 5 acres, and it does cost a small fee to enter, but it was well worth it. After crossing the Hozu River on the Togetsu-kyo Bridge, we tiredly arrived at the train station to make our way back to eastern Kyoto. How you feeling?
Tired.
Me too. My back hurts.
Lots of walking today, up and down.
I think we've done like between 20 and 30,000 steps every day.
And we did like the Torii Gates this morning and then the Bamboo Forest, which is all hills. So, and now we're sitting here relaxing, waiting on our train to come.
Yeah. After what felt like an eternity, our train finally arrived, and then we still had a 50-minute commute to get back to eastern Kyoto, including 2 transfers. Somehow we managed to muster up the strength to make one more stop for a few beers and a quick dinner at Craft House in Kyoto. Our last day in Kyoto started off with another early morning, this time going to Gion, the geisha district. Once again, in an effort to save a few minutes, we gave our poor aching feet a break and took an Uber from an Airbnb to Gion. The area features traditional Japanese architecture, including narrow streets lined with wooden buildings, creating a sense of old Kyoto. Towering over Gion at 151 feet is the Akasa Pagoda, which is part of the Hokanji Buddhist temple. We spent about an hour wandering the streets before it was time for us to go to our next appointment in North Kyoto, where we met up with our group to do a bike tour. This 5-hour bike tour was a great way to get around North Kyoto to see some of the lesser known attractions. Our first stop was Kitano Tenmengu Shrine that is dedicated to Tenjin, the god of learning and scholarship. Every year, hundreds of school children from all over Japan come to this shrine to pray for academic success, and it's also a popular destination during exam season. Our next stop was a much more well-known attraction, as you can tell from the crowd. The Kinkakuji Golden Pavilion. This structure was originally built in 1397 for a shogun, but after the shogun's death, it was converted into a Buddhist temple. Our next stop took a bit longer to get to, but that's okay because we were literally going to the oldest sweet shop in the world that was founded in 1000. It's called Ichimonjiya, or Ichiwa, and it has been operated by the same family for 25 generations, selling grilled mochi and tea.
We'll start eating and I'll tell you about the history of this place when we're eating. It's real brilliant. Of course in Japan we'd say itadakimasu, it's very polite. So. Perfect. Nice. Cool. Good. It's delicious.
The final stop on our bike tour was Gion Temple. This temple has an interesting past because its founding patron converted from Buddhism to Christianity. To honor this, the temple has some aspects of Christianity built in, like stones placed in the shape of a cross. After one more scenic ride through northern Kyoto, our bike tour was complete. I don't know the overall mileage that was covered, but because we were on e-bikes, it made traveling a breeze. If you have time, I highly recommend it. Our tour guide recommended a local spot to grab a late lunch before wrapping up our last day in Kyoto. Futaba is a small family-owned restaurant specializing in different broths and noodles. Per the recommendation of our guide, I opted for the cold udon. If I could travel back to Japan for just one dish, this would be it. The broth was rich with flavor and the noodles cold, and it made it very refreshing. Okay, so that's a wrap on our time in Kyoto. I'll finish this video off with a few stats and information from our stay here. First, I never mentioned the time of year we were here. It was early May, just after Golden Week. Even with the use of transportation, we walked a total of almost 75,000 steps. That's about 37 miles in the 3 days we were here. Although it felt like we did a lot while we were here, we only visited 9 of the hundreds of attractions in Kyoto. And lastly, we spent about 5 hours just getting from one spot to another, not including our bike tour. So my overall thought on Kyoto is it's definitely worth a visit, and if you can, I would spend longer than 3 days. There's just so much to do and so much to see in the city. Join us next time as we go to Nora to visit the famous bowing deer.
They were coming in too hot, too hot.
And now we're headed to Bamboo Forest. Why are you doing this? I'm terrible with this.